Hey, I'm Alex Rackle from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Sirens from Envy Born Games. Sirens is a 1-2 player drafting game of arranging the best composition based on a variety of scoring criteria. This is a prototype, everything you see here, rules and components, all that subject to change, and this is part of a series of 3 games. This is going to be a Kickstarter campaign, part of a series of 3 games. I'll have a link to that down below. But like I said already, Sirens is a drafting game. You're going to go ahead and shuffle up the cards, and then you're going to reveal the universal scoring rule for that round of play. In this case, we have that little L over here, which means each size 1 song is worth -1 point. So you're really trying to group your songs more than you normally would, and yes, I recognize you don't know what grouping your song means. But we're going to go ahead and take that, put it under here. There are 10 universal scoring rules, I believe, or sorry, 11 universal scoring rules on this. So a bunch of possibilities as far as the various rules you can have in play. We currently have that one. And then you're going to go ahead and have each player pull out 4 cards, and the other player is going to pull out 4 cards. I'm going to simulate a 2-player game over here, and we're going to start drafting our song. Now, I'm going to go ahead and literally just draft it out because it's that quick, and then I'll walk you through how things score. I'm going to be simulating by just randomly pulling for my opponent, but over here, we have a hand of cards. This is going to be our wild, which is not bad to get early, but I don't know. I know that there's 2 reds here, so you know what? They don't know if there's 2 reds, and he's probably going to pull the wild, so I'm actually going to go ahead and grab, I think I'm going to grab the 2 reds. So we're going to go ahead and take a red, and we're going to pass him these cards. Meanwhile, on his end, he's going to go ahead and pick a card, and whatever it is, that's going to be gone. We're not going to worry about scoring him, we're just going to score ourselves. I now have this section over here. I'm trying to remember what there was. I think there was a yellow, and my 2 heart yellow is not bad, and the yellow flows into red as well. So we can go ahead and take that. The question is, do we have another one that we want to pull? I don't think so. There's a bunch of things I'm looking at that you don't necessarily know yet, but I'm going to go ahead and grab this one and then hope for the best. We're going to pass them back to him. We're all going to have him shuffle up and take one of these cards, and so 1 card's gone. Looks like he did not take the rainbow. Honestly, he probably should have taken the rainbow. That probably would have been the right move. But I'm going to go ahead and take the red. This is going to go back to him. It won't really matter. And then we're going to go ahead and shuffle this up. I'm going to, well actually no, the last card's discarded. You're drawing 4 cards, and you're only going to keep 3 of those cards. So we're going to go ahead and have the 2 reds together. We're going to build our core. This is something that we'll talk about more, but right now all you need to know is that you do want colors, the like colors, these are red cards, you want them to be next to each other. You also want as many hearts as possible. That's another thing you're going to want. You're going to want colors to flow into one another, so yellow flows to yellow. This red card flows into yellow. You can see that from these marking symbols, matching symbols over here. This does not flow into yellow, it's part of the red. And then also, we have matching vases down here. These 2 vases match each other. That's going to give me 4 points as well. That's some of the stuff you need to know before we dive into the second round of play. We're going to go ahead and once again, I'll deal 3 cards to my opponent, because let's not pretend he's getting another card over there, because he's already randomly picking his card. We're going to go ahead and look at our cards, and we do have that wild card, which is not bad, or we could flow into green, and flowing into green is not bad, especially when you have this double heart card. And again, we want to think through what makes the most sense over here, because I could take this in order to put this here. We don't have to lock that in yet, but having that flow is not bad. The other hand is we are going to lose points for every size 1 area. Something we didn't really heavily talk about, but we talked about briefly, is you lose points for every size 1 area because of the specific round. Each size 1 area is worth -1 point. And so I think because of that, I'm actually going to focus more on taking this yellow so as we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to put that aside. We're going to go ahead and have this over here. Shuffle them up, discard a card. Did I do so? No, I didn't even get a chance to pick. Okay, let's go ahead and take this. That red is good. It doesn't pair up the vase, unfortunately. And these 3 cards are locked. But what do I have over here? This one's going to give me that, which isn't necessarily great. But right now, this flows into that. No, it won't work. It won't match up. So I think we're just going to take the red, which is what it's going to be. We'll go ahead and take that and then pass this back to our opponent. I'm going to go ahead and pass this back, shuffle these up, take a card. Let's see what we got. We got the green and the rainbow. I think at this point I will take the rainbow. That is going to help me a bit, especially as far as, making sure I have a large section of red, which might be the way to go. Then I'll go and discard that, discard these, and we have our 3 cards. We're going to place these down. We're going to place the red, we're going to place the rainbow, and we're going to go ahead and place the yellow. And this is where we're going to go ahead and score based on how the scoring metrics operate. There's going to be 4 scoring metrics, and they're going to score as follows. First things first, you're going to count up the number of hearts. Let's go ahead and score this over here. Let's put a little tracker on this so we can kind of see what we're up to. First things first, you're going to look at the number of hearts you have. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hearts. We're going to pretend that our opponent has 6 hearts. So they're going to get a point because you get points equal to the number of hearts minus your opponent. So however many hearts you have more than your opponent, you're going to get, however many hearts you have more than your opponent, you'll get that many points. The second thing you're going to score for is for sections of colors. This goes back to the size areas. This is a size 4 area because we have 4 over here. that's going to be 16 points. The size 2 area, which is going to be 4 points. Basically, you do with the square of itself. So 4 times 4 is 16, 2 times 2 is 4. We have a total of 20 points, and we have nothing from our hearts because our opponent had more hearts than us. Then you're going to score for chaining. Basically, chaining is when you move from one color to the next. So for example, this red moves to yellow, which is a good chain that's going to be worth 1 point. Your next chain would be worth 2 points, your next chain would be worth 3 points, and if we weren't being penalized for having size 1 areas, chaining could be a more viable strategy. But right now, because of the round marker over here, we have each size 1 song part is worth -1 point. We have a size 4 and a size 2. We have no size 1s. Chaining is a good thing to get extra bonus points for, which will move ourselves to 21 over there, and it can be very strong if you have multiple chaining going on sequentially. Then lastly, you're going to go ahead and score for vases. You also get a scoring bonus for having the sun and the moon, which we don't over here, but you're going to score for your vases. Any connected vase, which we only have 1, is worth that many points, which is 4 points over here. We move to 25 points. That's our round. You add up your opponent's score, see who has more, and that player is going to go ahead and take the scoring card, take the scoring round card that we have over here, and then they're going to go ahead and get that as their extra heart that they will have next round. So you have an extra heart towards next round, and the first player to win 2 sailor cards wins the game. That's basically how you play the game. There is a slight adjustment for solo mode. Solo mode is going to maintain the same basic rules, but has more of a draw 2 and then give yourself 1, give your opponent 1 as you go. And I think I kind of talked about it, but as you go through the game, you're going to go ahead and round 1, you lock your root, and then from there in round 2, you can play cards to any combination of any side, all in one, all the other, mix and match as you will. But round 1, you lock your root. The solo mode is going to have you placing cards to your left to right, locking them as you play, so it's a little bit more stringent there. And then rules as far as how you give your opponents a solo card on their end, and their heart score is double. You're trying to go ahead and beat them, and there are different levels of difficulty as you go through it, but the solo mode is the same core idea, just more of a draw 2, pick 1, allocate the other, scoring instead. Which brings us to review, starting off with the ease of play. Rulebook is overall, and the rulebook is tiny over here. It's like a tiny rulebook, but it's past the small text, and the text is small. If you don't like that, this is going to be something to deal with over here. But the rulebook itself is actually fairly clear. It's got tiny text, a little annoying to go through, but not a hard rulebook to understand. Game plays, you'll knock out a single round in 6 minutes of play, which means you'll knock out an entire game in anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes for an entire game of Sirens. Playing it solo, you could probably knock out an entire game in, well, less than that. This is a fast-moving game. It's an easy-to-travel game, just an overall very strongly accessible and easy-to-play experience. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, starting off with what I like, which is, first of all, the fact that there's multiple things to consider. I shouldn't say first of all, that's the core thing. You have multiple things to consider in a drafting game, which means you're being given a hand of 4 cards, you're looking at the cards, trying to predict which card is likely to be picked by your opponent, and then making a choice based on that. Your first pick is your most essential, but it's going to decide not just what you're going for, but what's likely going to make your way to as your opponent, and what you can possibly hope to see back. The game gives you different scoring things to continue to consider as you go through that. You want to collect hearts, you want to group your cards by color, you want to match vases, you want to go ahead and sequence from one card to the next. And if that's not enough, you have these 11 different scoring rules that will mix up the gameplay every single time, giving you a slight different way you're approaching the game as you go through it. So you have something else to consider as you play, and you have to be like, oh, well, I have to be mindful of this, and then this modifies that, so now I'm trying to draft slightly different than I was last game. The idea that you're trying to go for multiple things while having a degree of variable scoring, while giving you an overall fast and punchy experience that gives you a nice little tactical drafting experience in 15 minutes is all in all just a great game for the size, price point, package, all of that, playtime, all of those factors as you go through this. As far as what I don't like in the game, first of all, I didn't personally enjoy the solo puzzle as much. I found that solo puzzles are always interesting when you have a solo and a non-solo version. For me, this game definitely shone as a 2-player drafting head-to-head game. As a solo puzzle, it's okay, it's not bad, but didn't necessarily do it for me as much. And then secondly, is there's only so much you can actually do here as far as the variability over time. You have 18 cards, you're going for those core aspects. Some aspects also seem something stronger or weaker than others. The hearts in particular almost always feels like an afterthought to me, as far as I'll go for the hearts, and keep in mind, I'm saying this is somebody who's fully prepared to have to be completely stomped by somebody who knows the game better. But for me, perceptionally, over my plays, hearts were always almost the last thing I considered. I'd take a card with hearts when it was like helpful, but the points you'd get from hearts compared to the points you got from other areas just made them feel like something that I considered more as an afterthought than as anything important. But past that, you have a bunch of scoring metrics, and you're going through this. There's only so much you can really go through or experience from this. I love this sequence of having a little, variable scoring goal. What I would have loved to see, would have, I think, even added further variability to it, is if across those rounds of play, because you have 2 rounds minimum and 3 rounds maximum in the game, if across the course of play, you'd actually have scoring rules stacking. So, if in round 2, you're actually dealing with this scoring rule and that scoring rule. And that could be done in theory. You could house rule it yourself. You would just need another one of these cards with double double-sided, but in theory you could house rule it. You'd have to figure out how to track the hearts. There's things you can do, but either way, I would love to see it drop more from this, but overall, very solid experience. As far as I can see others not liking, there's a decent amount of iconography. It can be a bit easy to be tricked up on that. The small rulebook text is another factor, and ultimately this is a two-player head-to-head experience and or solo experience. If this kind of thing, drafting a hand of 4 cards, points scoring optimization, rinse and repeat isn't your jam, I mean, this is very specifically targeted to a very specific audience. I think it works well at what it does. As far as final thoughts on this game, as far as final thoughts on Sirens, I don't think Sirens does anything incredibly new or innovative, but I think Sirens does stuff well. I think it gives you a simple hand of cards, different things to consider, and then variable scoring on top of that to give you a fast, punchy experience that is rewarding to go through. I think it will have a cap on how long-term enjoyable it is or how much gameplay you get out of the experience, and I am curious whether expansions could adjust to that or not. This gives me very much the vibes of any button-shy experience, as any button-shy head-to-head experience where you have a solid base game, and the question is, how does it iterate from there? What does it do well? What can be expanded upon? What can keep the game tight and strategic? It is well done, and I'm enjoying it. I'm curious to see the long-term longevity of it for me. I'm curious to see where this one goes, because the size of the box makes it accessible, the ease of play makes it accessible, the travel space makes it accessible, the playtime makes it accessible. All those things are just strong things in its favor. I'm just curious to see how it holds up to, 20, 30 plays as opposed to 5, 10 plays as you go through it. But overall, that's Sirens. For me, this is going to be a 4 to 5. Again, curious to see where the rating goes. I could see this one going down, but for right now, it's a 4 to 5. I'm very much enjoying the puzzle. I think they did a lot with very little in terms of everything. As far as other game recommendations, first of all, I'm going to give you Circle the Wagons. One of my favorite head-to-head drafting games from button-shy games. Circle the Wagons gives you so much to consider in such a small box and keeps it nearly infinitely variable as you go through it and play different puzzles, different challenges, different combinations of scoring goals. I adore the game, and I think it's one of button-shy's best two-player head-to-head experiences. And if you're looking for something else a little different, something new I've been playing a lot of recently is District 9 by Pandasaurus Games. Not a drafting game per se, but it is a back and forth game as you try to slowly place cards out and then collect sets of cards, trying to outthink or outplay your opponent by tempting them into choosing the wrong sets so that you can score more optimally than they can. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.